Welcome to the Anglotopia podcast, where we explore British history, travel, and culture. This week, we're delving into the enchanting worlds of the Cotswolds, one of England's most beloved and picturesque regions, and also one of my favorites. I'm your host, Jonathan Thomas, and today I'm joined by Roanna Stromberg-Smith, CEO of the RSS brand, a luxury Cotswold concierge and tour guide service. Based in the charming riverside town of Lechlade, which I probably pronounced incorrectly, Roanna has built a reputation for providing exceptional guided experiences that showcase both the famous landmarks and the hidden treasures of the Cotswolds. In our conversation today, we'll explore how Roanna's journey led her to become a tour guide, discover what makes the Cotswolds so magical for American visitors, and learn about the unique perspectives she's gained from showing countless travelers around the honey-colored villages, rolling hills, and centuries of history that define this quintessential English landscape. We'll also discuss how tourism in the Cotswolds has evolved in recent years and the challenges of balancing visitor interests with preserving authentic local character, and gain insights into what makes for a truly memorable experience for travelers in Britain. Welcome to the podcast, Roanna.
Oh, Jonathan, thank you so much. Thrilled to be here today.
Thank you for being on the podcast. We love having a variety of guests, and I love talking to tour guides because there's nothing better than talking to an expert on a place, because they always are passionate about it.
Well, they're local insider, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to a deep dive with you and going, turning stones, you know what I mean.
So let's go back to the beginning here. What inspired you to start your company and become a Cotswold tour guide? How did you end up where you are now?
Well, it's a relatively new business, and I'm a proud female founder. I launched the business in my 50s, and it's the first time I've worked for myself. And it was a sort of melting pot smorgasbord of everything that I've done in the past coming together, and I had a bit of a light bulb moment that I could do this. But it's a new sector for me to be in travel and tourism, but I believe it showcases my skills pretty well. My background is in retail. I've always been a retail professional, and you'll have heard of Marks and Spencer's, the great British brand.
Yes.
And that's where I started my career when I left school after A-levels, and I won a coveted place on their management training scheme. So I was a commercial manager in stores, and from there segued into buying at their iconic headquarters on Baker Street a long time ago, but a very good grounding. And then later I actually worked for an American brand, Toys R Us, and I was buying toys. And so it was a career that sort of sprinkled me across lots of different retailers. And then later, when I had my children, I worked for some smaller independents. But basically, the grounding is customer service, customer facing, luxury end, good quality. And I've always liked products and people. And, I like fashion and interiors, and I like to know what's going on wherever I've lived. So, and I love meeting people. That's where the idea for the business came when I moved back to the Cotswolds about 5 years ago.
So that leads to my next question. Why Lechlade? And did I say it right? And why did you to settle in that particular area of the Cotswolds?
Yeah. Well, Lechlade-on-Thames is the correct name. And there's some discussion here whether we live in a village or a town. So I like to call it a village. Yes, there's some discussion. We'll call it a village for the purposes of today. Lechlade I didn't know at all, actually, but my long association with Cotswolds goes back 35 years because my parents moved here when I was 18, but not to Lechlade. They lived on the other side of the Cotswolds, and I know you've been there recently, what I call the Stroud Valley side. So I know you were recently or last year at the Slad Valley. So my parents lived that side, quite close to a town called Nailsworth, and in a little village. And so I was married from there. I never lived there, but I was married from there, and that's where my parents stayed for many years. So the family house has recently gone. My marriage and my life took me to different places, and I moved back here actually just after COVID to come back to this area because it kind of drew me. And I like its proximity to London because I like theatre and dance and opera, so I like to have access to that. But I also wanted to be back somewhere I was comfortable with. But this actual town, this village, is new to me, and it's been great. It's very interesting because it's the first navigable part of the River Thames. So Lechlade is the first place where you can put a boat on the river. So from my house, I can actually walk onto the Thames Path.
Nice.
Which, if you wanted to, you could, which I have not done yet, but I want to. I could walk it in stages all the way to London, and it takes you out at the Thames Barrier. So
I would love to do that.
I know the walks. I love walks like that where you sort of got a stage thing. But I'd have to break it off in weekends with friends or something. And the other interesting
it's a long
thing,
walk, everybody.
it's a long walk. But Letchshade was a port. I mean, it was actually an inland port. So the other interesting thing about where I live is it's at the point of 3 counties. So I live in Gloucestershire, but just over the bridge is Wiltshire, which is that next county. And then just the other way, I'm into Oxfordshire. So I'm at the sort of convergence. Some towns in England are like this, or villages are like this, where you're at the 3 different points of 3 counties. So it's been great, and I had a bit of a fresh start moving here after some big life changes. So it was actually quite nice to arrive somewhere new and make my life here. I rented a house, which was lovely and just was perfect for what I wanted. And I've been able to buy the house, and this is where I will stay. And then the business idea was starting to trickle in, and then I had to make it and do it and create it. And of course, you can get stuck in creation mode, but luckily, I launched.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I mean, living at the confluence of Wiltshire, Oxfordshire, and Gloucestershire, that sounds like England's England. That sounds like the perfect place to live for me.
It's
quite a nice place I could live.
It's quite Middle England. I'm happy here. And proximity is good. To Oxford, I can get to Bath in an hour. Oxford in less than an hour. Cheltenham, Cirencester, I'm about 20 minutes from. Burford, you'll know, I'm sure. You've been to Burford with Jackie. Yeah. 15 minutes. Yeah. It's pretty lovely. Basically, if a friend comes for the weekend, you can wow them at every turn. That's just the thing is... That's just the pubs.
That part of the Cotswolds, you can't, throw a stone without hitting a stately home or a church or an abbey or something National Trust property or something worth seeing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, an example, last Saturday I was working and then needed to sort of get some fresh air and have a leg stretch out and, decompress. So close to me, my nearest National Trust is literally 10 minutes. It's called Buscott Park. Lord Farrington's house. I don't know if you've been, but one day you must see it if you haven't.
I haven't.
And I'm a National Trust Life member, so I can just go after work and have a walk for an hour in the grounds. And it is the grounds of a stately home with a walled garden, the rose garden, and he's got beautifully clept sculpture, so there's lots of sculpture dotted around the garden. I do think that it's nice to be able to walk somewhere after work that's so special.
That does sound nice. I wish I walk every day, or almost every day. I shouldn't lie. I walk almost every day here in Indiana, but I can only walk down the road from my house along the busy road. There's no National Trust Park to go for a walk.
No.
Jealous.
I found this with clients when we've been out, and it's that sort of network of British countryside paths and footpaths and bridleways that is unusual for Americans, because and of course I've grown up with it and it's all I've known. So in fact we were quite a big walking family and my parents were big walkers, so there was a lot of Lake District walks.
Yeah, we just don't have that right of way here that the English have, and it makes me jealous every time I travel there because I live in a pretty part of Indiana, but unless it's part of the national park or the state park, you can't walk there. It's no trespassing, private property. If you attempt to walk on it, you're gonna meet the end of a shotgun and an angry farmer. I mean, it's not.
Yes, that reminds me.
It sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke.
No, it's not a joke. Now, that reminds me of a story I had. In fact, one of my very first clients was a couple and they came with their son who was 16, but very mature 16. And we ended the tour at Broadway Tower, which hopefully you know.
Yes.
And it was actually winter, so it was quite eerie and dark at about 4:30. So we got some amazing they took some amazing photographs. But their son was really nervous because we parked up in the lay-by. My driver left us there, and then we went in, and he thought we were breaking in because it was sort of after dark, and we had to go through a gate. And isn't it interesting that cultural difference? And I said, no, it's fine, safe, nothing will happen. And he said about a shotgun, and his dad just reassured him. But it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I love Broadway Tower. I visited 2018. The views from the top are incredible. And
It's
apparently,
such
I
a
didn't
good
have.
spot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's such a good spot, and I forget whether it's 10 counties or 12 counties you can see from up there on a clear day. But I think I do like to take clients to Broadway. Such a nice town, such a nice town. It's actually Worcestershire. It's, as you know, the very North Cotswolds. But the tower gives you that overview, and it's a place to sort of have a cup of tea, or sometimes I do a sort of sunset drink there with somebody if it's a special occasion. And if you want to, there's a nuclear bunker there to see as well.
I was just going to say that most people don't know that. It's a beautiful tower, but it was an important signal station, and there's a nuclear bunker right underneath it, which is so
it's
bizarre.
Quite interesting for the right person who wants to see it.
Yeah.
And then also there's quite a moving memorial to there was an RAF. There was a plane crash there, so there's a memorial to the people that died from that flight. But yeah, it's also extremely photogenic.
Yeah.
That place. To me, it ticks all the boxes when you're bringing people to the area. And one year, I walked with a group, as you know, the Cotswold Way, which is that sort of 100-mile walk from Chipping Campden to Bath. Some of it goes through Broadway, and we did a walk that starts in Broadway Village, and you go up very steep, up to the tower, round to Snow's Hill, and then back down around. I think it was about an 8-mile walk. But if someone's got the time, I think that's a lovely way to put yourself in the Cotswolds landscape.
Well, and especially a visit to Snow's Hill is a must. It's such a eccentric English place to visit.
It's so sweet. And it's got, the little bit of TV starring Great Britain, film bit with because it was used for Bridget Jones, the scene in the first film when she goes to his parents, Mark Darcy's parents' house at Christmas, and of course they filled the village with fake snow. But it's charming in its own right. And a little story there, which is quite nice for me when I moved back here. I actually stayed in one of the National Trust cottages when my children were quite little with a girlfriend. We rented it and took our kids away there. So there's a little row near the church of National Trust houses, and you can rent them and stay in them. So it's charming.
Yeah, that's one thing a lot of people don't know is that the National Trust is one of the biggest self-catering agencies in Britain. They have hundreds of cottages and interesting places that you can rent.
Yes.
For a reasonable price, too.
Yes. Some of them are a little bit basic. I wouldn't say they were luxury, but, that's fine. They're in beautiful locations. There's actually one at Buscott you can stay in, which is interesting. The other, I'm calling it a charity. I think it's a charity. Maybe you've heard of it. The Landmark Trust.
Yes.
Has some very beautiful houses, and properties. One of note is I think it's called the Banqueting House in Chipping Campden, which you can stay in. It's like a folly, which looks gorgeous. And I'm sure one day I'll direct a client to stay there, because quite often I end up advising people where to stay as well.
So
we've digressed, haven't we? Hugely. We've gone off track.
No, it's fine. That's what I want. But as we go back on the track, that's a good segue into talking about your clients. Was there a particular moment when you realized that, you know what, I want to be a Cotswold tour guide? I think that I could make this a proper job.
Yeah, as I say, I think I felt that I was moving back to the Cotswolds. It was an opportunity. I knew how beautiful it was, and I decided that I could showcase it. And it was more that with my background and my skills, I'd always worked for other people and monetized for them and, given my all and my best. And then I thought, well, how can I do this for myself and actually make the most of what I can offer? And that's where the idea came up. And my knowledge, particularly my parents' side of the Cotswolds is very good. And I also have got a particular sort of knack. Maybe it's a little bit of a superpower because I've moved a lot with my background. I was married to a British Army officer, so we moved a lot when my children were little and as they grew up. And I'm particularly good at moving to an area and knowing what's going on, because I'm nosy and I talk to people and I read papers and I read the posters and leaflets. I always like to think that I know what's going on and I don't miss stuff, so I can make sure that people are aware of garden openings or outdoor theatres or picnics or new shop openings or whatever it might be. And so I think that all blended rather nicely to be an idea for my business where I knew it would be luxury and premium brand, and that I would work with chauffeur drivers, and I've just gradually worked out, and now it's happened. And it's funny, you imagine it in your brain and you're sort of playing it through like a film. And then actually the brand is born, and it's quite a few things I wanted to happen have happened, which is lovely.
Yeah, as a fellow business owner, and I've been at this for coming up on 18 years. It's always, you always have to pinch yourself when you're in a moment where you're like, this really is happening, and I actually did this. That feels good.
I mean, whether you believe in the universe or manifestation, I happen to, but it's, I always wanted to deliver the secret gardens of the Cotswolds to a client, and I'm doing that in about 4 weeks' time. It's a dream brief to showcase the gardens and flowers of the Cotswolds. So that's landed for me, which is beautiful, and hopefully I want to build on that sort of experience tours that are quite niche in a way. But obviously I do quite a lot of Cotswold overview for people. And then also it's so nice when somebody returns, and I've got a returning client this year. So there's I like to leave them wanting more.
So kind of take me through. So Americans have a lot of options for tours and guided tours when they come to Britain. There's no shortage of tour buses from London and guided tours. What kind of take us through what a tour with you is like? What makes it different than a typical tour of, say, the Cotswolds?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that question. My difference, I think, is I set out to be different, is that I host the tour. So I'm not driving the vehicle. We've got an executive saloon car, a chauffeur driver who's with us all day. So if you're a client, I would have spoken to you, we're speaking and planning a trip. I would have had a Zoom call with you where I've spent probably about an hour getting to know you, finding out your interests and needs, so I can tailor make a bespoke experience for you. And then I might well have advised you on where to stay, because I think there's a lot of noise around, which village, which town, which hotel. There's so many options. How do you narrow it down? So I do offer a travel consultation as well. If people don't want a tour, but they just want the advice, they can have a session with me where I just help them narrow it down, and sort of they're confused, but I can bring them to clarity. So back to the tour, so that I would have had a chat with you over Zoom, and then you booked and you're coming, and I would arrive with the driver, pick you up at your hotel or accommodation, and then whisk you off for your day, which would involve quite a lot of touch points of what you're personally interested in, as well as lots of time for photo opportunity stops, and obviously refreshments, afternoon teas, the views, the countryside. So really my bespoke, I'm hands-on, I'm very warm but professional, and hopefully you're feeling that you've had an immersion into English life with me.
That's really appealing to me personally, and to a lot of Americans, is when I travel to Britain, I really want to have that local experience. I want to experience Britain the way that English people would experience it, not as the way an American should experience it because they're there on a vacation. And it gives authenticity.
It's a good word, yeah. Insider knowledge, and it's a bit overused, hidden gems, but the sort of things that there are the tourist places, Bourton on the Water, Bybury, but I go a lot deeper than that, and a lot rarer than that. And we'll stop at a church that's special that they wouldn't particularly be taken to. And the difference is, the car is their own, the day's their own. So, I hasten to add the price point reflects that, because it's a high level of service. But it means that if we decide to ditch let's not go there, we've seen something, let's go there, we can always be flexible. My drivers are all handpicked. I have a bank of them I use, and they love doing it, because these chaps are often doing sort of, lots of airport runs and stuff like that, whereas this is more interesting work, and they always add their take. But I do like to go insider, and then quite often I've been building my little black book of the Cotswolds, I call it, and with all my contacts, I can often add an extra layer of something special, whether it's meet the owner or go and see the artist in his studio, or a private tour of somewhere. For example, some of the gardens we're going to, we'll be meeting the owner and having them take us round, and then drinks and conversation with them afterwards. So it really will be an extra layer of special on top of a basic tour.
That sounds really nice. So, all right. So moving on from the mechanics of the tour business, let's talk about the Cotswolds.
Yay.
Now, for people who may not be familiar with the Cotswolds, explain the Cotswolds, what they are, because it's not a county, it's not a town, it's
No.
a geographical area. And why is it so important? Why do Americans love it, and why does British tourists love it, and
In a nutshell, it's the Cotswolds, not the Cotswolds, which sometimes it gets called, which is funny. It's an 800 square mile area. So that's big. And it's an area of outstanding natural beauty, AONB in Britain. It's basically famous because of sheep and wool, which made a lot of wealthy wool merchants, and then a lot of the wool churches were built. A lot of the wool towns were built, and that's why places like Chipping Campden and Stowe are, with their honey-coloured stone, so sort of iconic, and you can feel the wealth there. And that's how these wool towns all built up. And I think its close proximity to London, relatively 2 hours, it makes it accessible. But it's also got, rolling hills, quintessential countryside, villages. It's got a little bit of everything, really, but it isn't remote. But there's a lot more history to go into, and one of the places I take people to on tour is lovely for that, and it's in a village called Filkins, which we can talk about later, or people can find out if they contact me.
You talk about it now. I've actually been there, so I'm.
Been to Filkins? Do you know about? Yeah. Have you met Richard at Cotswold Wool and Weavers?
I haven't met him, but I've been to Cotswold Wool and Weavers, so I've been to the mill.
I'm so glad you've been there. It's a lovely place, isn't it? What's your memories of it?
It was lovely. We was in 2013, I think. We had a 6-month-old baby with us, and it was our first time traveling anywhere with our baby, and we had an itinerary put together by Visit Bath.
Yes.
No, not Visit Bath. The Visit Oxfordshire Cotswolds. Yeah,
yes, or Cotswold tourism or something. Yeah.
It's probably changed now. And they gave us an itinerary of everything to do, and it was on a list of things to do. And so we were ticking off the list as driving through the day to hit everything we were supposed to.
So you didn't have a driver; you drove yourself, Jonathan, yeah?
Yeah, we were driving ourselves. We rented a car and we drove ourselves, and we went to the woolen mill. And I remember it was a weekday in the middle of May. It was right before the Diamond Jubilee.
Oh yeah.
Or it was early June, I think. And the weather was beautiful. The countryside was beautiful. The mill was beautiful, but we were the only people there, and you could just walk through and see everything. And
it can be really quiet.
Yeah.
I just think it's fantastic. I live about 12 minutes from there, but it's the owner, Richard, and if I'm coming with clients, he'll always be available so that they get a lovely conversation with him, which is a deeper dive in experience. But it's basically that place is about the wool and the mill, but it's also about stone, because there's a stonemason there, and obviously you'll know about the Cotswold stone and the honey coloured.
Yeah.
But it's a really nice start to a tour to sort of cement people in the history of it, and they understand it. And then there's a beautiful little place to have coffee there, and there are things to buy. He's got a beautifully curated shop.
I bought
tweed
a hat.
hat.
I bought a tweed hat. I still have it somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I still have it.
If you were there in 13, that's some time ago now. So 12 years on, and it's probably evolved even further. But Richard's great. And that village is particularly special. And again, it's a bit off the normal track. That would be
It is, yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, because it's you provide access to the Cotswolds that a lot of Americans wouldn't normally visit, simply because a lot of Americans don't want to drive themselves.
Yeah.
So booking a concierge service like yours is a great way to see these places that Americans wouldn't normally go to for that more authentic experience, simply because they're being driven everywhere.
Absolutely. And also, often the standard tour is a bit of a cookie cutter, right? We're doing this, and this. Whereas with me, we can do a lot more, and we can flex. And then some of the loveliest moments for me with clients have been in the car. It's the conversation between places. And I would say, if you're coming here, allow lots of time, because the Cotswolds is the place to savour and soak up. and enjoy. It's not a place to be rushed.
Yeah, and that's really hard for Americans to do. We get limited amount of vacation, and we have a lot of pressure to see everything we can in a short amount of time. And that's why we like to say the same thing. If you're going to go to the Cotswolds or somewhere like it, you got to slow down. And just, if you don't slow down, you're going to miss how wonderful the Cotswolds are. Because one thing I love about the Cotswolds is the silence, is the sheep, is the sounds of Mother Nature, and you don't hear that if you're rushing around.
No. And I always say less is more. And one of my jobs when I'm first talking to visitors that want to book me is to manage their expectations. You know, it's not one day in the Cotswolds, then we'll drive to Scotland, and then we'll just squeeze in Wales. And so I try and gently manage expectations, but I also tend to ask you tell me if this is a good question, but I tend to say to people, you know, do you want a slow pace, a medium pace, or a fast pace? And obviously it depends. It depends. Yeah, it depends on people's, you know, mobility and fitness, and you know what are they celebrating. You know, in the summer I've got some honeymooners I'm taking out, which I'm thrilled, and you know they're a fair bit younger than me, so I suspect the pace will be a bit faster, and that's fine. You know, I have the energy and vitality for that, but other people want to, you know, we can adapt and we can flex. Ideally, I'd have somebody for more than a day. I would recommend for a good immersion, 3 days in the Cotswolds is lovely, but probably stay in the same place. But then, as you know, it's geographically close enough to tour out from for most of those places to stay in one place.
Yeah, and that's a mistake I've made. When we stayed over Christmas a few years ago, we stayed in the southern area, the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
But the Cotswolds are huge. And so I'm like, oh, well, let's go to Bourton-on-the-Water. And it was like an hour and a half drive away because it's a very geographically stretched out area. And you got to be careful because there's only one motorway, but you're going to miss everything if you stick to the motorway.
You don't want to be on the motorway. No, I mean, if you were coming from where I live, let's say to Bath, you know, you've got to allow an hour and 15 minutes because of traffic. But Bath is very edge of Cotswolds. I mean, if people do add it on. But I always think what's so lovely, though, is although there might be a drive up to the North Cotswolds of 45 minutes or up to, say, Dalesford at Kingham, fine, there's a bit of traffic, but there's so many lovely things on the way and views and places to stop. So it's never a chore. And I find people are just wanting to soak up the conversation and the things that we talk about in the car, from sort of the dry stone walling to the plants, the trees, dare I say it, the people of the Cotswolds, you know, what's been filmed here. So it's lovely. And each conversation, you know, no two tours I've done are the same. They are all unique. And that I'm very proud of that. There's nothing sort of that's a cookie cutter. It's nothing out of the box. It's tailor-made for you, for your holiday, your trip.
So now, living in Lechlade puts you near both Bibury and Bampton, where Downton Abbey were filmed.
Bibury.
Yeah. See, like I said, I've given up trying to say them correctly.
I'm just going to correct you so that you don't mind. Bibury and Bampton. Yeah, Bibury is like maybe 20 minutes for me. Bampton is about the same. Bibury is gorgeous, and it's one of the top rated places, as you know. If I take a client there, I would normally be going early in the day or end of the day because it's quite overcrowded and it's a small village, and I don't want to put any more pressure on it myself. But it's a must-see, and it's a beautiful, as you know, that iconic Arlington Row cottages is a beautiful place to take a photograph. But there's a lot more to Bibury. I mean, there are places, I've done a beautiful hike around Bibury, a big one, but taking it into account. And there's a couple of other little places. There's the Trout Farm, but there's also one of my favourites. Do you like classic cars?
Yeah.
Do you know about the Classic Car Motor Hub?
No, I've seen the museum in Bourton-on-the-Water.
Oh, no, this is not the museum. So now you're going to have to come back with Jackie because I'm going to personally take you there.
Okay.
It's just on the edge of Bibury, and it's a bit hidden, and they sell classic cars there, but it's a lot more than that. It's beautiful. Best coffee, bacon sandwiches, everything. So that's there. And then for me, digging a little bit deeper into Bibury, the church is exquisite, and that's a bit hidden off the beaten track. How many people actually go in the church, or do they just stop and take a photo? Church is lovely, and they happen to have a beautiful literary festival there most years, so I often go to a talk there. And I think I think you'll be a bit jealous of this. I actually was there last year, and I heard Nicholas Soames speak, who of course is Churchill's grandson, and that was very, very special. The village has very strong connections, and the vicar is really well connected. But I remember after that talk, I walked through the village and did my sort of village walk, probably 8 o'clock at night, 8:15 on a summer's evening after this 6 o'clock reception drinks in the church. I mean, there wasn't anyone there. And that's when you go and see it after hours.
Yeah, and on that, my one experience with Byberry is it was on a stop on an itinerary I had set for the day. I got there, and there was literally nowhere to park, and all the car parks were filled with coaches, and so I just kept driving. Yeah, because I was like, there's no way. And on your point about once the tourists leave, I love Castle Coombe.
Yes,
and I stayed there several times. I stayed there several times at the hotel above the pub,
the Manor.
And yeah, and it's mobbed during the day with tourists who just stop to take a picture of the iconic scene and then they leave. But after like 5 o'clock, you can hear a pin drop in the village.
Exquisite. And
it's paradise. I love it, and I will go out of my way to stay there simply because it's so quiet, and it's also really quiet in the morning before the tourists start arriving late morning. And so you can go around for a walk, you can enjoy the stream and the cottages and the pub, and
then go off for your day and leave them to it. And I think I try and obviously sprinkle in some of the hot spots, but there's a good part of me that likes to showcase other areas. And I've got nothing against Bourton on the Water, but I don't love it. So it's quite over touristy. And most of my clients, we go to somewhere a lot more real with a lot more sort of independent shops and things. But it's the best time actually for Bourton on the Water is Christmas, because they put a Christmas tree in the middle of the water, where it goes through the village.
Yeah, I've been there at Christmas, and it was nice.
Yeah. Oh, well, Cotswolds at Christmas. I mean, imagine all of this with a sprinkle of snow.
Paradise.
Did you ask me about Bampton? Should we just touch base on Bampton?
Yeah. Well, and the overall question was how has film tourism sort of changed what people would experience there?
I think it's still growing. Funnily enough, Visit Britain this year, they've made a really, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're doing this starring Great Britain promo. And I think there's a very high percentage of people that do want to come to locations. And I think it's great. I mean, I feel that I'm encouraging people to come here and spend money, and you are too. And it's important I'm a member of Cotswold Tourism, and that's what we're here for. My business is a sub-member. But although people think they're coming into a film set, it's actually, this is what it's like. I mean, we live here and this is real as well.
Right.
So I think it's still growing and changing, but I guess the filming thing has only maybe been the last 15, 20 years. Bampton I find really lovely because although somebody obviously wants to see Highclere Castle for Downton, which we can do.
It's not near.
It's not near, it's an hour, but you can do. Bampton is useful because it is more Cotswolds, Oxfordshire, and it combines well with, say, Kelmscott, where the William Morris House is. And we go on to Bampton and they can see the church where the filming was, the schoolhouse. And there's a charming little Downton Abbey shop now run by volunteers from the village. It's just, actually, I think the money raised for that shop was from the film crews, the money that the film crews have donated to the village. So it just, for people that love Downton, it just gives them a little moment of seeing those film locations. And I think most people are very welcoming of it. There has been some press about overcrowding and stuff, but I think, it's not like the great big London film locations and stuff like that.
So we've kind of touched on over-tourism a little bit and overcrowding. And so what are some of your hidden gems that you think many guidebooks kind of leave out or there's not a lot of tourists who come to see that are actually really worth seeing?
Oh, now I've got to divulge secrets. Well, okay, a couple. I like taking people to see the Rollright Stones. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
It's near Chastleton, and that's a National Trust house. But if you're keen on Stonehenge or Avebury, Stonehenge is super busy over. I mean, amazing, but it's a slow trip to get there and everything. Avebury Stones in Wiltshire, I think, is far nicer and far more accessible. The stones are actually set around the village. Whereas the Rollright stones is our sort of Cotswold ancient stones, and it's very accessible. You can just pull into the lay-by, wander through, and it's an easy one to add on, as is walking through, going to see Chastleton House and the Sir Jacqueline Manor. So I do like to showcase a stately home or two. Buscott Park is another small, more under the radar one. I am particularly fond, because I adore William Morris and the arts and crafts movement, Kelmscott Manor, which is William's summer home. Have you been?
Yes. Yeah, we went on that trip in 2013.
Yeah.
And it was well worth seeing. Again, like, it's this thing where you have to park a little bit away from it. You have to walk to it. And then you get there and you're in the middle of the countryside in the spring. It's lovely.
It's interesting because I love William Morris and art and design, etc. As I've alluded to, and it's funny how you attract clients who have got the same sort of interest quite often. So when I can do the Kelmscott bit, it's a combination of seeing the river and a beautiful, the really quiet part of a tributary of the Thames there, and then the house, and then there's the Plough Inn, which is a charming pub, and then the church where William and his wife and his daughters are buried. So it's a whole package, that. And I don't think that's on the main tourist trails. And I'm also a volunteer at Kelmscott, so I'm a little bit under the radar anyway, and I know them. So I'm talking to them about doing a sort of bespoke experience for me there as well. The curator is fascinating. If you meet the curator, she's got a PhD in William Morris.
It's a very niche thing to have a PhD in.
But PhDs are niche, aren't they? But you can go.
Right.
You can go. You can just go deeper and deeper here. And we haven't even talked about the festivals. I'm very fond of there's Chipping Campden Literary Festival. There's a jazz and there's a music festival. There's Cheltenham and there's the Bribery Festival. There's a lot of events in the area which are really, really put on very well as well. So if you're here on the right weekend, you get to sometimes go to a village event, a village show, a village festival. Example, Barnsley, which is just outside Cirencester. They have their summer festival in May. So I'll be going to that again this year. It's close to my birthday.
So obviously you interact with a lot of Americans in your line of work. What kind of cultural differences have you noticed in the way they travel and when they visit the Cotswolds?
The main concerns for them, worries before they come, are about the driving. So I can solve that quite easily by either arranging a transfer to meet them in London or indeed to collect them from one of the train stations here. Most clients would come into Charlbury or Kemble or Mortimer le Marsh. They're worried about the narrow roads, driving on the other side of the road. What happens if a car's coming the other way? So they want to see the area, but I take that away with the driver, so that's great. They often ask me about what to pack and layers and the weather, so we will talk about that. What other cultural differences? Probably the sense of history. It's the depth and the sense and the layers of history we have that they just find so fascinating and that I'm so proud to demonstrate with the places we go.
So what's the kind of most common reaction you get when Americans experience the Cotswolds for the first time? Is it awe and wonder, or is it,
It's really lovely. It's a lovely question. And this sometimes even happens like when we meet at the station, for example, Kemble Station, which is particularly picturesque and sort of oldie worldy. And they just, my guests normally just go, wow. And it's like a movie. It's surreal. It's unreal. I think I'm in Harry Potter. It's so quaint. And it is, awe is a beautiful phrase, but it's also joy. It's a happiness that they're actually in it, and they're in it, and it's real, and it's not a movie set, and people live here. And this is, I guess that's something for me. It's that gratitude of not forgetting that you live here and to be grateful that you're immersed in it, and you can just go for a country walk after work. But I'd hate to say the reactions are all similar. It depends. Most of my clients are discerning international travellers, so they've normally at least been to London. But I still think there's a big contrast between, London parts and the Cotswolds Green, Green in Pleasant Land. So, yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea of the reactions I get. And it's a joy. It's happy. It's really happy. And let's face it, in the world, the way that today is, we we need to find that joy and that happiness in sense of environment and place.
I don't think it's possible for anybody to be in the Cotswolds and be unhappy at the same time.
True.
So,
and I mean, I've got a friend who's got a gorgeous cottage in the village of Southwark, quite close to me here, near where the Hotel Time is. And she's got a booking coming up where I'm going to be helping some of her ladies who are staying. But they're staying for 3 weeks. Imagine having 3 weeks where you could really actually relax, enjoy the garden, go to the pub. You'd see everything. And, you know, we all, anyway, I mean, this is where if you're lucky enough to be able to work remotely, you know, you can be with your laptop, can't you, and sort of immerse in an English cottage.
Immersion is always the best way.
I would hate to take it for granted. So I feel very lucky that I can do this.
So what has been your most memorable or unusual experience when guiding visitors around?
There was one day where I was with a couple. It was the same couple who had the son I mentioned about the Broadway Tower experience. And it was lovely for him, particularly for him and the parents. We were up in Great Chew, which, as you'll know, is quite near Soho farmhouse, up sort of North Cotswoldy towards on the sort of Oxfordshire side. Not Oxfordshire, definitely in Oxfordshire, part of the Cotswolds, because you know it's in several counties. And we were up there. We went to the Falkland Arms, which is the pub there, because we were having a little bit of pub experience. And it's a great pub with a really low ceiling and all the beer glasses coming from the ceiling. And it's like, wow, it's a very quite dark wood. And then we took a stroll in the village. And to my delight, obviously completely unplanned, unscripted, but perfect, there was the thatcher, the master thatcher was there, thatching a cottage, rethatching a cottage, up a ladder. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a rural heritage skill. So then they were able to see it, take photographs of it. And it was you don't see that very often, that you happen to be there on foot when there's somebody rethatching a cottage. And that led into interesting conversations about heritage and rural skills and the fact that how expensive it is. And, you know, the roof is not made of slate or stone. It's made of thatch, straw.
If I had been on that tour, I would have been thrilled to see that.
It was really sweet. And I must admit, I went, yes, to myself, because I just thought that was a gem. And of course, you can never plan for that. It just kind of what might happen. But there's been a few little things like that where things have dovetailed and there's been moments for the client that are sort of perfect. Sometimes it involves animals and things like that and what we might see on the side of the road and who we might bump into. But I want to be discreet. I can't give away all of the little...
Yeah, I had a conversation with a guy who runs tours out of Bath, Jules Mitra, and he was very reticent to say all the secrets of the tours that he does, because he doesn't want the places to get overrun and he doesn't want them to be destroyed by too many people visiting, and so he kind of keeps it close to the chest. I'm the same way too. I won't tell anybody our favorite pub in Wiltshire. I won't say where it is or what it is.
Okay, so when we're off air, we'll talk off air. Oh, favourite pubs. I mean, that's another whole discussion. I mean, we're spoiled for that. And I'm slowly working my way round all the pubs. So I really have experienced all of them, because it's one thing, you know, what I don't do is recommend somewhere that I don't think is really good. And I have very high standards because I've been in the service industry. I mean, I'm pretty fussy. To me, it's about the people, though. And then you can tell when the people are well trained and obviously the food's good. So, I can understand him doing that.
That's actually a segue into the rapid fire questions I'm going to ask here at the end to test you here. So, have you been to Jeremy Clarkson's new pub?
Yes, I have.
Really? Is it any good?
Well, here we go. The day that I went, it was very busy. There's a field opposite, which loads of cars in. But we drove into the main car park, and somebody was just leaving, so we did get a place by the door. It wasn't. When was I there? Oh, maybe 5-6 months ago. There's a big terrace. What it has got for itself is the views. The views are amazing across the countryside. As you know, it's on a sort of roundabout on the A40. I was underwhelmed, if I'm honest. Little bit of a drink on the terrace. I've been there. I've done that. Funnily enough, I got some very good news while I was there. I got an important announcement when I was there. We were there, we had a quick drink, and to be honest, we then moved to another favourite village close by called Astle, and we went to the Three Horseshoes in Astle to have our meal, which is one of the Dalesford pubs. It's where Astle Manor is, which occasionally the garden's open, and that's where the Mitford sisters lived as children. So there's another whole story there. It's, some people want to see Diddley Scott Farm Shop. They want to go there, and it's on the map, but it's not hugely my thing. I'm amazed at what it's brought into the area.
Yeah, and I think the next season of the show, which comes out in May, is going to cover his quest to open the pub, so that should be fun.
Is that season 4 or season
4? Season 4, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do find the TV series hysterical, and I love a show that I can watch on my own and sit on the sofa and hoot with laughter. So it's fun, and it's kind of on the map for me. But I wouldn't say many of my clients want to go there, but I mean, I don't mind going there. Trouble is, the road round it is busy and clogged up, Jonathan. So who wants to waste their time sitting in that traffic? I mean, you can be dropped by the car, but there's better places to go. And I think most people want a quieter, it's part of your holidays is your well-being and making you feel good, not like stressed by traffic. Yeah. So what was the next quick fire?
So the next one, which I think I know the answer to, is your favorite stately home in the Cotswolds.
Well, define stately home. I mean, that's an interesting one because...
that's a hard one. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a dual-edged answer to that one. Blenheim Palace, probably Blenheim Palace. Okay. Woodstock, Oxford, amazing. I think a really amazing day out. And like you, I'm rather fond of Churchill, but I do not have the knowledge you have on him. In terms of smaller special house is Kelmscott Manor.
Okay.
And
those are two very good choices.
Yes. Thank you. Coming from you, that
Full
means
marks.
a lot. But Kelmscott, as you know, William Morris said about Kelmscott that that place was heaven on earth. And I think that's a beautiful quote, that was his heaven on earth. And I occasionally do wild swimming with a mad group of women I'm in. And we have swam in the river there. And you can be, obviously you're down in the river looking up through the reeds, and I can just see the rooftops of Kelmscott. And that to me is just lovely for me because it's all of my sort of magic in one go. So yeah, Kelmscott and Blenheim probably, but there's a lot of niceness in between.
I'm partial to Durham Park.
Yeah,
because of the remains of the day.
Yes, and right now all the tulips. There's a huge tulip display there, like now, because they're just coming out. I mean, I don't know when this episode will go out, but obviously we're recording this in April.
Yeah, this will probably come out in May. So,
okay.
So what's your favorite film set in the Cotswolds?
I do like Snow's Hill. I know we've touched on it, but I do like Snow's Hill. But I do have to mention we had a fantastic BBC adaptation last year of a book by Julie Cooper called Rivals.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw it. It was super.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's very 80s, and I'm a bit older than you, so it was like when I was growing up, it was classic, fantastic show. Well, that was filmed at Chauvenage House. Chauvenage. Even I'm not sure the pronunciation. And that's it. And they're now opening it so you can go around to it. So that's a fun one and a smaller one.
Yeah, they have a YouTube channel now, and they're chronicling their whole opening it up thing. Yes, it's very good.
Oh, good. That reminds me to catch that Chauvenage House, and I think the garden's quite nice there too. So that's the film set bit. But I could go on. I mean, it's not like there's one or two. There's lots.
So, have you encountered any celebrities in the Cotswolds?
I have indeed. Discretion is my middle name, and obviously I'm an elite premium business. But I was thrilled. I've met Richard E. Grant, the actor.
Nice. Yeah.
And then very close to where I live, in just literally the next village between here and Filkins, is where Kate Moss lives. So we do have Kate Moss in Lechlade quite often.
And so, what's your favorite village in the Cotswolds then?
Probably Kelmscott. Kelmscott. It's close to me. I can go there for a walk. It's rather magical. There's a lovely walk around the village. There's a walk to the river because of the house. Yeah, I'm very fond of Kelmscott. Also close to me is a village, have you been, called Eastleach. So in Eastleach, we have a great pub called the Vic, but there's a really nice village-to-village walk. So you can walk from Eastleach to Southwark and do a circle, and there's a pub at each end, and it's about an hour and a half. So that's kind of two perfect little villages, again, off the beaten track. That's a sort of walk I can do with a client easily and fit it into an early evening day or a long tour day.
Well, that actually answered my next question, which was your favorite walk. So I think.
Well, that's a nice walk. Yeah, probably though my top walk, one to end on, is an estate, a National Trust estate, which is just on the Cheltenham Road, from Burford on the Cheltenham Road on the A40, and there's an estate called Sherborne, as in a bit like Sherborne in Dorset, the same spelling, I think. The Sherborne Estate, and that's a National Trust place, and I'm a National Trust Life member, so you can park there, and that's a beautiful walk it's just got a combination of views, village, woodland. The last time I did it, the bluebells were out and the wild garlic was coming through. It's just a really nice walk and easy, and that's another. And also the Windrush Valley, which is near me, and that walking in the Colne Valley, the Windrush Valley, absolutely lovely. So I'm sitting here thinking I need to go on a walk.
And I'm jealous you can just walk out the door and you're in the English countryside.
We need to do our 10,000 steps. And today is a glorious day here. We're having a seasonally gorgeous April. I mean, it's been about 17, 18 degrees today. So weather's good. I was supposed to be in Canada, and I'm not there now this week. And I think it's snowing there.
Yeah, we had snow, I think, yesterday. Our spring is not in a hurry to get here.
So. Do you have listeners across Canada as well as America?
Yeah, we've got them all over the world. Half of our listeners are English, so it's bizarre.
They're just doing a deep dive on their own country because there's always something you don't know, right?
Exactly. So, well, thank you so much for joining us on the Anglotopia podcast, Roanna. Her bespoke Cotswold tours through the RSS brand can be booked on her website, which we will link in the show notes.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed today's discussion about this enchanting region of Britain, please subscribe, like us, or leave a comment. If you like the Anglotopia podcast, please consider joining the Friends of Anglotopia Club, where you can get early access to new episodes and exclusive writing about Britain. Join us next time as we continue exploring the treasures of British culture, history, and travel. And thank you, Roanna.
Thanks, Jonathan. I've loved it. See you soon. Bye.